Which are Georgia's 5 toughest games in 2024? Who do I think will be Georgia's 5 toughest opponents? Maybe it's not just look, and I'm gonna give it to you from 5 to 1 with an honorable mention. But this is my criteria. Is it on the road? When is it in the year? Who are they playing? Where are they playing? How good is that team? It's a mixture of a lot of things. It's not just straight up, this is the best team they're playing. This is the second best team they're playing. Which are the 5 toughest games for Georgia in 2024? Here we go. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post here talking about Georgia's toughest games in 2024. And I'm going to give it to you right now. Honorable mention. So this is my number 6. At number 6, honorable mention, I've got the Kentucky Wildcats. Georgia's got to go up there and play them in September. Let me get the exact date for you. It's Georgia's 3rd game, Week 3, September 14th, up in Lexington. It just barely misses my top 5 toughest games for the Georgia Bulldogs this year. Brock Vandagriff, Jawan Dumas-Johnson, right? There's going to be a couple familiar faces up there at Kentucky. If this was later in the year, if this was cold like it was 2 years ago, like we've seen a handful of times up there in Lexington when this game's in late October or in November, I'd feel a little bit differently. I'd feel a little bit different. But this is going to be in September. Georgia's going to be finding its footing there early in the season. Kentucky's going to be dealing with... look, I'm assuming that Brock Vandagriff's going to be the starting quarterback. Who knows Brock Vandagriff better than anybody? How to stop him? The Georgia defense. The Georgia defensive coaches, Kirby Smart, the guys that have been giving him what he knows for the last few years. The guy, he was at Georgia's program for 3 seasons. I think that'll be a manageable game for Georgia, not an easy one. It's never easy to play on the road in this conference, especially not against an opponent that you have to respect, and you have to respect the Kentucky Wildcats. But I just think that they're going to miss out on this one. They're in my honorable mention in terms of this. Number 5, in my opinion, Georgia's 5th toughest game of 2024 is the opening weekend game against Clemson in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This is one of the Chick-fil-A kickoff games. This Clemson team really struggled last year. Look, they were 4-4 at one point. They got beat by Duke, losing a couple key pieces on defense. It's a good defense, right? Or at least has a lot of names that we like, right? And they add a guy, Sammy Brown, that's 25 minutes, 30 minutes down the road from Athens, right? So they've got names on defense. They've got Cade Klubnik, who is a name. They're losing guys like Will Shipley. They're losing some talent. Got a little bit of that in the transfer portal, right? They don't hit that super hard, but they did get some talent. I just think this Clemson is not what Clemson was from 2014 to 2020, right? It's not the same Clemson team. And I think that I watched that game against Kentucky, right? You watched that bowl game. I can't remember which bowl game that was, but we were sitting in Fort Lauderdale, down in South Beach, down there, South Florida, watching that game, and I was just like, man, Georgia would beat up on this Clemson team. I don't think Clemson is much better, if better at all, this coming season, and I think Georgia's going to handle them. Right? I don't know that it's going to be a super close game. It being that neutral site there in Atlanta, that's only good for Georgia, right? It's just a little bit closer for the Dogs. Obviously, Clemson's not too far, but I just think that offense doesn't feel like an organized offense with him out there. That's kind of my takeaway. My football IQ is low, but when I'm watching the Clemson offense under Cade Klubnik, I think that it's just disorganized and not one that's methodically getting you downfield. And they don't push downfield at all, right? They're going to have trouble with Georgia's front seven, a front seven that I don't think will be Georgia's best in recent years. And number 4, Tennessee, Saturday, November 16th. That'll be in Athens. That is the only game at home I have on this list, in this top 5. I think Tennessee would be pretty good. I like this quarterback. I like Nico. I'm not going to pronounce your last name. They're under some recruiting violations right now, some NIL violations. It looks like they're being investigated, the Tennessee Vols are, and it has a little bit to do with him, or maybe a lot to do with their recruitment of that 5-star quarterback. I do think, as I say, the teams are moving in the right direction, and I like to compare it to a graph, and how fast are they moving, what's their slope. I think that you can kind of look at it in terms of trajectories. Tennessee has been on an upward slope, not one that Georgia was under Kirby Smart and has been, but they're moving like this. If the destination's up here, they're still going towards that. And I think that, another hyper recruiting class, a another year where he's establishing himself up in Tennessee. I do think that that'll be a tough-ish game for Georgia, but at home. And my other reasoning for that is, look, later on in the year, right, those games get difficult. We saw Georgia, even though they were injured, kind of wipe through that November schedule that we thought was going to be really, really hard for them. That included Tennessee, it included Ole Miss, included Missouri. Georgia got through that, but it wasn't easy as it looks at times. It's a grueling schedule. Yes, there are 2 byes, but later on in the year is always going to be difficult. Number 3. This might be your shocker. Alabama. I've got at Alabama as Georgia's third toughest game. I believe that Alabama's going to take a step back. This could be anywhere between an 8-4 and a 10-2 team. Excuse me. I don't see this team being 11-1 or 12-0 in the regular season. I think I need to see what Kalen DeBoer's offensive styles are with Jalen Milroe. I am fighting back a sneeze, if you cannot tell. I need to see what Jalen Milroe is with him. I need to see. They lost so many important pieces to the offense and the defense in the wake of the Nick Saban retirement. So it's just not the same Alabama team. It's not the same Alabama coaching staff. It's not the same. Georgia literally got one of their best recruiters and coaches on their coaching staff right now. So I think this Georgia team is going to be noticeably better than Alabama. It was last year. What's the difference at the end of the day? It was always Nick Saban. Nick Saban was always the difference, and he's not there anymore. And I think that Georgia, it would be a really bad look if Georgia goes down to Tuscaloosa and loses that game. I think it'll be their third toughest game, right? That mental block of playing Nick Saban, it's gone. It's gone. That A, it shouldn't feel the same. Playing against that A, playing against the Tide, it shouldn't feel the same. All right, if it is, then that's just what the football gods want, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Number 2, I think at Ole Miss in November is going to be Georgia's second toughest game for part of the reasons that I referenced for the Tennessee game being super tough. Later on in the year, you accumulate injuries. If your team's not on a roll, it's tough, but that's go time. But at Ole Miss, look, what are the 3 weeks prior to that? 4 weeks? Auburn, Mississippi State, at Texas, going to Jacksonville. There's a bye in there. And then going to Ole Miss. It's not an easy schedule for Georgia. I do think that Ole Miss is going to be a pretty good team. I think this is a playoff team. It would have been a playoff team probably this past season. And I think that same thing again about the Rebels. They had the second best player in the transfer portal through my eyes in the defensive lineman and Walter Nolan. You lose Quinshon Judkins. That's huge. He was one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best. But they didn't run their offense through Quinshon Judkins the way that you think you would when you have a superstar running back like that. And obviously he scored against Georgia, right? He made an impact against Georgia, but it wasn't huge. I do think that Ole Miss is a really good team. I think this is a playoff contender. I think it'll be tough. They totally could be better than Alabama. It would not surprise me at all. Georgia's toughest game, this is the easiest one. It's at Texas. I think Texas is the best team Georgia will play in 2024. I think Texas is a top 5 team in college football this coming year, most likely. I care a lot about the quarterback position. This is a quarterback-driven game. Quinn Ewers will be one of the best, if not the best, quarterback in college football. Right? And Carson Beck, the same sentiment goes for Carson Beck. Right? You point towards those 2 guys. Maybe those are the 2 best, and you pick which one you want. They're a little bit different, but Texas's offense reloaded a little bit, even though it lost some talent, and it reloaded with Alabama's talent, and it reloaded with Isaiah Bond, and now they've got guys over there, and they're building something at Texas that I think is really good. I think Texas will be a really good football team in Austin. It's going to be a tough environment. Look, guys, I'm hesitant to say Georgia's just going to go down there and beat them here at the end of January, right? This is January 31st. So I'm hesitant to just say Georgia's going to go to Austin and beat Texas. I do think Georgia will be the best team in college football in 2024. I feel good about that. I feel pretty good about that. Those are my 5 toughest, right? Honorable mention was Kentucky, Clemson, Tennessee, Ole Miss, or Bama, Ole Miss, and then Texas. Those are your top 5. Those are the hardest games, I think, for Georgia in 2024. If I got it wrong, let me know. If I got it right, let me know. I'll be looking at the comments to see what you thought about my list. And thank you for watching. The newsletter is down below. Please sign up for the newsletter. Be a 5-star Georgia fan and sign up for the newsletter.